Well, I thought we can just jump right in, Lauren. So,
Yeah.
guess what? You're my very first guest on my new podcast. So
Oh my
honored and so
God, I'm
happy to have you.
honored.
Well, the honor's mine to have you on. So, for folks who don't know, so Lauren Killey is my own personal fitness coach. She's the one who's helping me get ready for my very first competition, which is happening November 15th. So, Lauren, I want you to tell folks who you are, but in short, you've been in this space for a really long time, since for 12 years, and now you specialize in helping bodybuilders get to stage, and you've been doing that for like what, since 2018, you said, and
Yeah.
but you've been competing yourself for 11 years, and you are a professional. You've won so many titles. So and your company, Built Different Society, is all about empowering women, which I'm like, when I saw that you rebranded, I thought, oh my gosh, we need to have a conversation. And and I love that you said in your description that you want to basically do something different in this field. You want to help female competitors do it in a way that's empowering, where they can show up as role models for other people. So usually I find that what we are passionate about is because we see something that is missing around us, where there's a void. So tell folks if there's anything else you want to share about you, but also like, why do you think it's important what you're doing?
I love that. And you're right, there's a void.
Yeah.
So I want to delve straight into that. You kind of given a really lovely elevator pitch. Yes, been in the industry for 12 years now,
Yeah.
been competing for 12 years now, and obviously work with females, body transformations, lifestyle transformations, but
Yeah.
predominantly comp prep. That's the passion. But the passion in that is, I suppose, twofold. One, what it can do for people. And
Mhm.
you'll be realizing this on your own journey, how much we learn about ourselves because for prep, because it's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Competing, bodybuilding, prep, it's not easy. It's
It
a
is
very
not.
difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
It forces us out of our comfort zone, which I think humans need to do more often, because that's
Mm.
where we really do learn what we're capable of when we do step outside of the comforts and the complacencies of life. And it really does force us to kind of look inward at why we're doing it,
Mhm.
why we're wanting to do something uncomfortable, why we're putting ourselves through this challenge. It allows us to understand ourselves better. So it's the learning about ourselves that comes from bodybuilding. So it's the
Yeah.
process, right? Show day is fantastic. Like I love it. It's amazing. It's great. But it's the process and the prep that
Yeah.
the real passion comes from. That's that side. Um, but the big missing piece, I think, is competing has become so popularized over the last decade. Like when I started 10
Mhm.
years ago, very different, very, very different. The shows were different. There was not much information out there. It wasn't as big as it is now, but women all around the world of all different age groups in all sorts of categories want to compete because they can. We've
Interesting.
got lots of categories to suit
Yeah.
lots of bodies, to suit lots of situations across lots of federations. So it's bringing in more and more women. And even women who don't necessarily want to compete, they tend to look up to the fitness models, the competitors, the FMG pros, the IFBB pros. Like that's who they idealize, right? And
Mhm.
these young women are getting their ideas of what they want to look like, their body, their mentalities around health and fitness from these athletes.
Mhm.
So these athletes become the role models to the next generation.
Yeah.
These athletes become role models to everyone on social media who gets their information from them. Like da 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 da. Of course, we've got the influencer generations as well,
Yeah.
but um, what I see is competitors and athletes can become the next positive role models to the next generation. And so it's the coach's responsibility to
Mm.
ensure that they are fostering positive role models in this sport so that those people can educate, they can motivate, they can become a positive voice that starts to shift how the sport is perceived, but
Mhm.
also then what women take away from being in it or just viewing it.
Yeah.
So that was quite a long spiel, I suppose, but
No,
that's the missing
this is
part for
great.
me.
No, I mean, this is great. I think what you're saying that reminds me of something is, and it so far it hasn't happened too much with me, and maybe it happens more with you.
Mm.
It's like what you're saying with, young women who look up to these athletes and think, oh my gosh, this is what I aspire to. And now me having going through this process myself, it's like, this is actually not a lifestyle path, right? So like with a lot of women who do look up to this and say, "Oh, I want to look exactly like that. I want to do." So tell me what your secret is. Tell me what your formula is. And I now understand why a lot of competitors don't share a lot of their, like, the nitty-gritty of
Mm.
their process. It's not because they're being secretive, but I think they're also being cautious that someone doesn't just take that recipe, if you will, and think that just because they apply it, they're automatically going to look that way, and they might do it in a way that might be harmful. So, it's kind of interesting that you bring up this idea that, yeah, like, a lot of women look up to this and they want to copy that, right?
Mm.
Which um, is interesting to me because, like, when I was like, younger, and you may remember this from your teenage years too, like, before social media, we had magazines. Right, at least in
Mm.
my era, like, it was magazines, right? That was, we didn't like, this was like pre-internet, and even when internet rolled
Yeah.
around, it was still like, oh, getting your Cosmopolitan issue or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever glamour ish, magazine was, prolific in your, in where you live. But at the time, I was just remembering, like, every single magazine I looked at, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are these women so flawless? Right? How
Mm.
are these women just so naturally perfect? And then you don't understand, or as a young person, that they've done a lot of things, at least on the publisher side, that to kind of mask a lot of, flaws, if you will. A lot of it is not real. And I think there's that toxicity in comparison of seeing someone say, I want to be that. But then now, fast forward, when you look at athletes on stage, you're like, well, they're not airbrushed. This is through hard work. So I want exactly that. So, what are your thoughts on this? Like, with women who maybe aren't ready to be athletes, aren't
Mm.
ready for that lifestyle, but then they think, oh, what I see these images of women on stage, like, that's what I want. So I'm going to do or
Mm.
copy what they do to get that body.
Yeah, it's a great question, and
Yeah.
how you led into that, I think it's really important. Where you said a lot of the information isn't necessarily being shared, not for wanting to hide what's going on so
Right.
much and being secretive, but because it can be taken the wrong way. And that's the fine line. Is, well, as an industry, as coaches, as athletes, what do we do? Do we hide the information so people don't copy it? Or do we put the information out there and educate people so they can make those educated
Mm,
decisions from a place of understanding? And I guess that's the route I prefer. Is it's not healthy. That is the reality of competing. It's not healthy. And
yeah.
anyone that tries to say it is either dumb,
Yeah.
I'll be honest, dumb, or they're incredibly misinformed. It's
Yeah.
not a healthy sport, right? But
Mm,
climbing Mount Everest isn't healthy. Like,
yeah.
getting into a boxing ring and getting your ass kicked is not healthy. Like,
Right.
people do different things for many different reasons. We have high level sports for many different reasons. Humans like to test human potential.
Hmm.
And competing, to me, that journey, that process, that prep offers a lot of benefits, but we have to come to it from that understanding that it is not a healthy thing to do. We can do it in the healthiest way possible. And that is, you get in, you
Hmm.
do the show, you get out, from a conditioning perspective, from
Yeah.
a body comp perspective, from a this is how we're going to look. We get into stage condition
Hmm.
essentially for that day. Now, it's not
Yeah.
exactly for that day,
Right.
but for that day, and we get back out. But what we can do is we can achieve and sustain a very aesthetic physique, a very healthy physique. We can learn a lot about health and fitness,
Hmm.
learn about ourselves. And for a lot of women, finally find control over their body, over their food, over self, over thought. They find a lot of control in that process. And that's the sustainable healthy factor, right?
Yeah.
Is the 90% of the time. So I think educating on the reality of it is the first step.
Yeah.
It is not sustainable. It is not healthy. To look how we look on stage, we can't look like that all the time. But if you look at top level competitors, top level pros, year round, they still look great. They
Right.
might not be as lean, and they might not be exactly what they look like on stage, but they still look great, and they're healthy. So
Hmm.
that's what I suppose we need the industry to covet, is the off season sustainable look, if we're
Yeah.
looking at it from an aesthetic perspective. But then I suppose to covet the habits, the process, the mindset, what gets the athlete to looking like that,
Yeah.
rather than seeing them on stage and saying, I want to look like that. It's like, well, what got them there? What habits, what mindsets, who did they
Yeah.
become? I want to become that person, and I'll find myself in a body that I love. And then it's just educating on that process as well. Like, it might not be airbrushed like the magazines, and it might not be Photoshop, but to an extent, we use peaking protocols, we use
Sure.
water manipulation, we manipulate salt, food choices, tan, posing.
Yeah.
It's the real life Photoshop and editing.
Yeah, in some ways, I mean, it's so true because it's like the process even of me practicing posing. Like, why do we even have posing, right? Like, posing's to make sure you accentuate and show off your physique in the best angles, with the lighting, everything. Because otherwise, everyone would just stand up straight and get
Yeah.
on stage, right? Like, but that wouldn't be. But it's also an aesthetic sport, so that wouldn't be aesthetic either. So, what I also am reminded as we're talking is this idea. Like, so back when I was in the corporate world, I remember like companies like every quarter they would talk about their goals, their team goals, company goals, whatever. Like it was this
Mhm.
huge fanfare every year at least. And some companies it's like every quarter and just depending on, where you are. And people were just so hung up on the goals, like where are we with the
Mhm.
goals? What's our progress with the goals? But no one ever talked about execution. No one ever talked about how do we make it easy for teams to do things? How do we make it easy on the individual level? And I think for some reason, I don't know if it's like human nature or whatever it is, but we get so attached to the goal that we forget the process to
Mhm.
get there. And I've seen this a lot with like the women that I've worked with or talked to who say, "Oh, I want to look like this," or "I want to be able to wear, my old jeans again," or whatever, they set out that milestone or that end goal is. But then when they come to the door of, well, this is what you're going to have to do to get there. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm too busy. I don't have time.
Mhm.
So like the work itself is not attractive. I think it was Lane Norton who said like some of the basics is super unsexy. It is super boring. And you have to
Mhm.
attach to the boring, to the stuff that feels like it's not going to get you there right away. Um, because that's the path itself. And I used to use the example of Michael Phelps because I just think he's an incredible athlete, right? At 35 he won like 8 gold medals at the Olympics, which I
Mhm.
think is just, incredible. um and like if somebody like Michael Phelps was so attached to the gold, and but he wasn't doing the practice, like he's not going to get there, right? Like when people ask him, well, like now that you've won, now that you're, the top of the world, like what are you going to do? It's like, well, I got to go back to practice, right? Like once you get to the peak of Everest, you're going to still have to do the things that got you up there, right? It's not
Mhm.
like all of a sudden you forget how to be an athlete. So I'm kind of curious, like just from because of where you're sitting, you've been in this for so long and you've done this for so
Mhm.
long. You've seen a lot more women, a lot more limited mindsets around this. And oftentimes I just really want to try to help women break through this mentality that don't get so attached to the goal that you forget that you have to actually walk the path to get there. Like, yeah, what's been your experience in that, just in that
Yeah.
whole thing?
Oh, yeah, I no, I love it because you're right. So many people get completely fixated on the goal, the show, the result. And I think to me, there's two reasons behind this, especially with a lot of the women that are drawn to competing, which is driven, motivated,
Hmm.
women with a lot of grit,
Yeah.
hardworking, high standard for themselves. But they also tend to be the type of woman who doesn't know how to take a step back, often will work herself into the ground. These
Yeah.
are the common things, very common things I see in the
Yeah.
competing space. Can be great, can be an absolute strength because we get a lot of shit done, but
Mhm.
it can be at our own detriment as well when we become seeking of the validation of the external. And I think this is what I see in this space a lot
Mhm.
is it's that external validation piece that comes into play, which they're so focused and fixated on that final goal because it's when I get this thing, this is how others will perceive me. This is what I can portray because of this thing. It's not internal. It is the
Mm.
external. And, as humans, we do seek external validation. A lot of humans do seek external validation without realizing they're even doing it necessarily. So I think one, that chasing of a goal can, not for all, but can come from that place.
Mhm.
And so this is something that I work with my girls, and what I look for and what I've seen in the space a lot is that internal work that's happening in the process. It's
Yeah.
not just macros. it's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
just calories. It's not just training. It's the conversations that we have in check-ins, the things that we pinpoint. It's the whys behind it. So why are we chasing this goal? Is it just for the external? Because I can tell you can get to stage, you can win, you can get a pro card, and it does nothing. It does nothing if you have not done the internal work of learning on that journey and making that process a part of who you are. A piece of paper doesn't mean that you're going to keep doing the habits after the show if you haven't instilled them inherently. So it's about really adapting into that process and making it a part of who you are and understanding why. If you even want to, you don't have to. Not everyone has to want to be a competitor and live this way. But I think the other aspect of it is this happiness piece that humans were chasing. Happiness, moment, thing, the pair of jeans that fit, the dress that feels good, the magical wedding day, whatever it is. We're chasing our moment of happiness. And this might stir some people up, but happiness doesn't exist. Like, it's this fleeting thing, like happiness isn't a thing. It's movement. It's working towards something. Like if we look at from just a generalized perspective, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very top of that need for humans is self-actualization, which is a need to be working towards something, right? Purpose. So the person, we are referring to this example, the person that works towards Everest, like I'm sure that view is spectacular. Like I'm sure that moment is amazing, right? Amazing. But it's the purpose of working towards something that pushes through the drive on those hard days and those hard moments when they want to give up. And so rather than fixating on the goal, which is I want to win, get a pro card, whatever it is, it's that learning and realization that it is in the journey that's the happiness, that's the satisfaction, that's what changes you as a person. And when you finally adapt into that mindset, that's when everything changes. Because I see people I was this person for years because I've been in this competing space for 12 years. The good half of the beginning of my journey, I was, and I'll admit it, seeking external validation. I thought if I get a pro card, it's going to change my career. It's going to change who I am. If I win this particular show or this particular title, people will see me different. I'll operate in different circles. I believed that wholeheartedly and had to go through that learning and the wins and the ups and downs to realize I'm still not confident. I still don't love myself how I want to. Why not? I've achieved what the other girls have. Why is it not happening? It's the internal. It's the process.
I love what you're saying about that because I often talk about the importance of having self-worth, right? Because I feel like that's what I'm hearing you're saying is at the end of the day, if everything, all this external stuff was stripped away, like the titles, the crown, whatever, right? And it's just you. Are you good with you? And I think that's a really, really hard space to be in because there are very few people on earth, at least people that I know, who have truly reached the level where they're good with themselves as they are without needing all the external validation. I mean, they might have them, but it's like for them, it's like they might as well throw them away because it's not a defining characteristic of who they are anymore. And and I say this often too, to like a lot of the women I talk to and work with is if you don't like the process of getting there, you're not going to like it because once you reach that goal, like you said, like the view might be great, but you got to turn around and do the same thing. Right. Because otherwise then you reverse a lot of the work. So, and I think that oftentimes we forget that the work itself is the goal. It's kind of like, I guess what's another analogy? Like you could graduate with like a college degree at a C level. You could get a degree, right? But it doesn't matter because like if you got the C level, that means you didn't put in the work. Maybe you didn't study as hard. Maybe you didn't have practice writing the papers and all that. So you still got the degree, like congratulations. So from the outside, you're the same as everybody else who got a degree. But what does the degree do for you if you didn't actually execute on the learning before you got it and then after you got it? Like, I guess that's like a little bit of an analogy I'm thinking in my head.
Yeah.
So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the power, or like why women should have muscle, because,
Mm.
I'm pretty, I mean, I, you're younger than me. So when I was in, I think I can't remember if it was like high school or middle school, whenever it was a whole like being as skinny as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And then later on, it was a thigh gap. And then we have that Kate Moss saying, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. I mean, I just remember you just had to be so, so, so skinny. Like it's alarming to me just how much pressure there was because I look back at photos of myself when I was in high school and I was by no means overweight. And I just remember throughout my whole life being body shamed and bullied for being overweight, for being fat. And it, it's it's interesting what time will do to your perspective because you look at your old photos and you realize, oh my gosh, why did I ever think that about myself? Um, and now we have like these changing standards of, women should be curvy, but then there's another, bucket of standards like, no, you should still be super, super skinny, having that Pilates girl body,
Yes.
whatever. Um, I think whichever camp you're in, I'm telling women, you got to lift. It's not just
Mhm.
for aesthetics, but it's also for your health. Like, tell me a little bit from your perspective, somebody who, you're a professional bodybuilder, you coach women on this. Why should women have muscle?
Mm. Yes, exactly what you said. That it's not just how we look. It's what it does for us. It's the health side. Because I grew up same era. It's the skinny is the way.
Yeah.
All through high school, it was the magazines. It was I need a thigh gap, and that was my whole upbringing as well. And so I know the feeling. I hated my body growing up. I hated my legs because I've always had what I thought was thick legs, bigger
Hmm.
quads, and I hated that I could never get them skinny. And when I first discovered bodybuilding, I saw, for me, it was Andrea Brazier. So she's, going back 15 years ago, but she was the legs, the quads, the muscle. She looked like, to me, Wonder Woman, a superhero
Mm,
or superheroine in real life. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh my God, like, yes. And that was it. It was like, it was a superhero, It was like, how badass is that? Like, why do I
yeah.
want to be skinny and not, obviously there's nothing wrong with that in that sense. But to me, I was like, I have thick legs. Like, why not own this and make them bigger? Like, let's
Yeah.
go down that path. But from an actual health perspective, like, absolutely, look at when we age. Just lifting weights helps to sustain bone density. We're less likely to have falls and injuries that will debilitate us in our old age. Staying capable with our stability and our balance so that we can do what we need to do as we get older, to be able to play with our kids, to have the
Yeah.
strength, as a woman, to pick something up if we need to. I use this example and it's silly, but it's like, what if you were dangling off a cliff and you needed to pull yourself up? We want to be able to pull ourselves up. If you're trapped under something, you want to be able to push it off you. I'm like, you want to be able to
Yeah.
save yourself. You shouldn't have to, but you want to be able to. Um, it looks great. Yeah, having muscle looks great. We can
Yeah.
change the shape of our body with what we do with the muscles themselves. My shape's changed so much over the years just from adding muscle. But it's how we feel. And I
Yeah.
think that's the important piece, and not all women want to have muscle, and that's okay. Not all women want to look like bodybuilders. That's okay. But I encourage some kind of resistance training
Yeah.
in general from a health perspective, to be strong, to be fit, to look after your general health. What you do when you're younger, it's what you do now that sets you up later. And it's very hard to think about how we're going to live when we're 50, 60, 70, in our
S-
30s,
So tr-
because it's
it's,
so long away. But
yeah,
what we
it's
do
like,
now,
sorry, like I just had this thought. I was like, I heard somebody say this recently that all you need to do when you're old is be able to, squat your own weight by sitting down and getting up from the toilet at the very least.
mm,
Right.
mm,
Because that's, I think the best kind of health insurance is if you can mitigate your body from breaking down in such a way that you can no longer enjoy life. I mean, that's to
mm,
me. So like for women who are listening to me, I mean, a lot of the women who, I associate with are kind of around my age. I'm about, if everything goes right, timeline wise, I mean, a lot of us are about 10 years away from perimenopause. Like,
mm.
it's not that far away. Like, I still think 2008 is 5 years ago, okay? So,
Oh God,
time
I
is
know.
you know what I mean? Like, time is passing so quickly. Like, people say like, "Oh, yeah, this person was born in 2000 something and, they're an adult now." And I'm like, "Wait, that's not true." So, 10 years is gonna go by so fast, and we're gonna be close to perimenopause, and that's and usually a lot of times I find that women around that age or later discover, oh my gosh, I should have been building muscle. I should have been maybe eating differently or have built these habits. Like, do this now, right? Like, I don't know what the Australian equivalent is, but here in the US, like we all have like our retirement and our, 401ks if you're working with an employer. And what's the advice they always give you in finance, in personal finance, is start early, right?
Yeah.
You can't see
Yeah.
the returns early on because you're young and you're thinking YOLO, whatever. But closer you are to that mid age, the more it's like, oh, we don't actually have as much time as we thought. It's like
Mm.
there's only I think it can only benefit you to take care of yourself as early as you can. I mean, I was, part of the McDonald's generation, so who knows what that's going to do to me long term, but
Me
right.
too.
Yeah, right. I mean, like it's really we just didn't know when I was a kid. My parents thought McDonald's was healthy because they thought, well, if it's a food from America, at the time in the early 90s, it was like if it's food of America, it must be good. So anyway,
Mm.
that's a whole other bucket. But yeah, uh, I think we should just do it early. We should all I
Mm.
think all women should lift. Like especially and you work with moms too. So the
Yes.
thing that I see around with moms is, moms will say, "Oh, I can't," or they're afraid to lift weights. It's like you're picking up your kid,
Yeah.
2, 3 at a time, you're chasing after them. Like in many ways, you're doing the things that you would be doing at the gym, but now you're just, doing this in real life. So if you can pick up your 30, 40, 50 pound kid, why can't you do that at the gym? And so I think a lot of women also underestimate their strength. I think that's also
Mm.
the issue. I think a lot of women just they they have this fear of weights from the perspective, oh, it's going to hurt me, it's going to make me look like a
Mm.
man, or I'm not going to be strong enough. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, like you probably have met those myths. Like, how do you help women break through those?
Oh, look, it is a process, and we've got to tap into where their fears come from because it's different for everyone.
Yeah,
Like one woman might not care so much about the aesthetic, she's worried about injury, but another woman might care about, well, I don't want to look masculine. Another one it might be the uncomfortability of judgment of others because that's not the identity she has. So it is all about tapping into the individual issue, but like on a general, I suppose again, it's an education piece. People don't understand. Women are so afraid they'll go into the gym and start lifting weights, and they will get too muscly and they won't like how they look. But I can tell you, I've been trying to get too muscly for 12 years, dedicatedly trying,
yeah,
and still not big enough. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work to put on muscle.
yeah,
And I think people underestimate, how hard it is to put on muscle from that side. So you're not going to just accidentally wake up too big,
yeah,
right? But we are a lot stronger than we think. And we are capable of a lot more than we think. And we can build muscle if we want it with the right process. And I think a lot of women just haven't felt how incredible it is to be strong. It's
mm,
it's a great feeling when you're doing it in a way that feels obviously safe, when you feel like you know what you're doing. And a lot of it, I think, just comes down to that. Confidence, I say all the time, confidence is just knowing we know what we're doing.
mm,
So if we don't know what we're doing, we're not going to be confident in it. And a lot of women don't know what they're doing in the gym. They're
yeah,
copying things they see on social media or they've read somewhere, they're just taking an influencer's workout and going in and doing it. They don't
mm,
necessarily understand the important foundations of how to move, how to do an exercise correctly, the
yeah.
importance of stability, how to breathe through our movements, like all of the little tempo, why that's important, like the actual nuances of training. And you don't have to become a coach and have all the knowledge in the world, but having just a basic understanding creates that confidence,
Yeah.
and then that kind of mitigates a lot of those issues. I think the resistances, it's just the confidence.
I think that confidence piece is huge. I remember when I first started like dabbling in weights. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I picked up dumbbells and started doing curls. I was like, I guess, I mean, that's one move that seems obvious or seems right, intuitive. And then I started copying some, or doing things that, one trainer one time showed me. So I did those. And then I didn't do any much else. And maybe I'll be on a machine because, with machine, it's at least you can look at some of the diagrams and, think that you might know what you're doing. Um, but looking back, it's like, no, I had no idea what I was doing. And it wasn't until I started working with a coach who gave me an actual program and a protocol to follow that I was like, oh, okay, so this is what being on a plan, right? Like learn. And even then, it wasn't perfect. And I think oftentimes we let perfection be hinder like be the hindrance of us starting. I think a lot of people think, oh, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm gonna look like a fool, whatever. And then so they think that they have to be perfect. And really, if you look at anybody's starting point at the gym, I mean, they were just doing what they can. I watched that or a documentary on Arnold's journey, and he
Mhm.
started lifting weights like in the woods. You know what I mean? Like before he got a gym, he was just doing stuff in the woods. Like we all have to start somewhere, and if we you and I would say don't let perfection or don't let all the perfect I'm forgetting the word, but just like all the factors be have to be there. Like you can just start. And the other thing I think I've observed with people is, you know, they'll tune into the influencers like you talk about, and then
Mm.
they see all their different protocols, all the thing like, watch what I eat in a day, watch all the things that I do. And then people get overwhelmed. Like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, like you have to do what? Like you have to count
Mm.
calories, you have to, track your macros, and then the water and then sleep and stuff like that is too much. I can't do it. So I'm just not going to do it. And I'm just going to go do, I don't know, some other fad thing that I can do for 30 days.
Yeah.
Um, that personally kind of irks me when
Mm.
people, just follow an influencer and then they say, you know what, I'm just gonna go do what's easy. I had this I worked with this woman shortly for a short period of time, and uh she wasn't exactly following her protocols. So towards the end, she decided that she was going to do this other program that was basically basic like a intermittent fasting program. I'm like, okay, well, that would do the trick too, but you probably would have gotten there if you just done the work. So, um, how do you help people overcome that? I mean, just this idea of like everything needs to be perfect, or I'm
Yeah.
just so overwhelmed that I won't even start.
Yeah. Look, it is a difficult one, right? Because there is a lot. Part of it, I think, is again coming back to that trying to chase a final point. It's like we're going to get there, but we've got to stop chasing that final point. We've just got to focus on becoming who we need to become. That's it. It has to be identity shift, right?
Mm,
If we are not who we want to be, if we don't look how we want to look, there's a reason for that. So we've got to make some changes. And those changes aren't a fad diet. Those changes aren't what the influencer told you to do. Those changes aren't intermittent fasting or keto or whatever it is, because that is a temporary fix. And
yeah.
slapping a band-aid over it ain't going to do shit, right? We need to go deeper. We need to change who we are. We need to change the identity. And that means focusing on, well, who do I have to become? A question I get them to ask, this is it's a common one I say, it's the 24-hour self, right?
Yeah.
When you wake up tomorrow, so you go to bed, you wake up, how do you want to feel after you've done whatever you've done today? Do you want to wake up and do you want to feel, God, I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done this. Or do you want to say, yeah, I did everything that I needed to do for myself yesterday. And it's just
Mm,
constantly thinking about your future self. And it's kind of the Pinterest bullshit,
yeah.
motivational, like treat yourself how you treat your best friends or your sibling or someone you
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
There's merit to it, but I think about it more from just the perspective of respect yourself enough to look after your future self, because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah.
That is the reality. Like the person that loves us most in the world still isn't able to care for us how we need to care for ourselves, because they're not the one
Mm,
living in our body. We're the one living in our body. So we have to be
yes.
the person to respect ourselves enough to make those decisions for not our current self, our future self. Because current self is marred by emotions, is marred by the situation, is impacted by what is going on in that direct atmosphere. And in those situations, we are controlled, yes, by emotions, we are controlled by ego, we're controlled by a lot of different things. And so we have to be able to strip all of that back and go, what does myself tomorrow need? Not what I need right now. Because what I need right now might be a tub of ice cream and a good cry. That's fine. Go have a cry. It's cathartic, right?
Yeah.
But tomorrow is not going to be happy about that type of ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's starting to just help them take a breath, take a step back and go, am I making the decisions now that are going to serve myself tomorrow? And literally just start by asking yourself that question,
Yeah.
right? Because it is a lot. It is overwhelming. And so let's not strip it to the what do I have to do? Because this list starts to look very long. The water, the macros, the training, the this, the that. And it doesn't even have to be all that. You know, if we just want to start by getting our health and fitness in line, it can just be the basics. That's a whole big other conversation.
Yes.
But it's
The
like, you know,
basics.
let's just take it to each moment, right?
Yeah.
I'm waking up, I'm deciding what I need to eat for breakfast.
Mm.
What am I having that's going to serve me tomorrow? Not right now.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. What am I doing with my day? Am I going to go to the gym? I don't know. What's tomorrow me going to think about that? That's it. That helps us to start to make those decisions. It kind of makes it a little bit objective. It doesn't matter how you're feeling. It doesn't matter what people think. It's just, what do you need tomorrow? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what's so powerful of this conversation is just this idea that, you know, we've all been socialized, especially women, to care for others more than we care for ourselves. Right. And, you know, I have a special affinity to support moms who are also business women because they're in a situation where they often don't get to prioritize themselves. And, you know, there are instances where being in peak shape is not your priority. That said, my um the thing that I keep preaching and pushing is without your health, you have nothing. You know, you might be out there and thinking, if I don't go do this, then my business might fail, or I'm not going to make as much this year as last year, or whatever it is. But if you break down and you're in the hospital, none of that matters.
Mm.
And so to me, health is number one. And but I see this over and over again with women who are burning out. And like you said, you know, ambitious, driven women who run themselves to the ground. Um, because it's, for some reason we have this idea in society that taking care of yourself and looking after yourself feels frivolous or
Mm.
feels selfish or whatever. And I really want to help like shake that around and say, no, we have to take care of the foundations. Like I'm all about the basics and the foundations. And part of the foundations and basics is you have to be able to walk around and look after yourself because
Mm.
you can't be a leader of a business. You can't be a leader for other people if you can't lead yourself, if you can't even lead your own body
Mm.
towards health. So, and you know, oftentimes, you know, I get it. Like when these women are busy and they're taking care of so many different things. And my, you know, my advice to a lot of them is, you know, you don't have like, first off, you don't have to look like anything. Okay.
Mm.
There's no, you know, get that out of your head. Like you don't have to look like anyone. You just look like yourself. And, 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 and with everything going on in your life, what it is that you want to do. Maybe it's, you know, I just want to be able to sleep better, or I want to just have enough energy. Well, then your movement, your fitness plan will probably be different depending on what your goal is. But if, let's say, you have someone who is busy, a mom and running a business, and they have so little time as it is, and but they still want to do something for themselves and still want to get in shape, and they say, okay,
Mm.
just what do I do? What do I get started? How do I get started? Like what,
Yeah.
how would you, where would you point them to? Because I think
Yeah.
that's oftentimes where people get stuck is like they get so busy, but they still want this thing and they don't know how to get started. And because they don't have the mental energy to explore how to do it, they just kind of give up. So what would be kind of like your entry into fitness advice for women
Mm.
who, you know, who are living this busy, chaotic life?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing that came up when you said that was, God, it's a chicken and an egg situation, and it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it would be. It seems like it could just be like, here's this, this, and this, simple, done. But what you said there, the mental load, the cognitive capacity.
Yeah.
When you're overrun, when you've got so much on your plate, your cognitive capacity is overloaded. And when we're in that state, it's very difficult to get anything done outside of the absolute necessities, yes, but our body's not going to recover. You know, we're not healthy in that go, go, go state, especially women, right? Because I've got to try not to go off on a tangent because I want to go off on a tangent on this, but I'm not going to. We live in such a culture it's a grind mode culture, right? And I have nothing wrong with that because I love it. I'm like, fucking work. I do excuse the cursing, but let's get shit done. You know, like let's work, let's make the most of our days, let's move. Like that's the kind of person I am. I love that, right? Yeah. But I'm very much in the belief that women, we do adapt into what is that very masculine grind mode, you know, which is go, 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 don't sleep, work all the time. You know, we're pushing. Our nervous systems are different, whether we like it or not. Female nervous systems are different to male nervous systems. They can do that. They can work without sleep. They can deal with stress. They can grow. They can go. Their bodies are designed to do it. From an evolutionary perspective, they're designed for it. Females are not. So we need to be able to hit our grind in a different way. We need to be able to keep going, do the work, show up, be that boss ass bitch who runs the business and looks after the kids and has the family and gets shit done whilst managing our nervous system. Yeah. Because it's different. We will burn out. This is why we see so many women with health issues, because the body keeps the score, whether we like it or not. Mentally, our perceived stress might be low because these women are tough. They're like, I can handle it mentally, but their bodies aren't handling it. And so I think the first piece is knowing how we're supposed to feel, knowing what just the basics we should be looking for. You know, basic female health. Do we have a consistent cycle outside of obviously impacts from contraception? No? Yeah. Probably something there. Are we sleeping? No? I'm a bit of a hypocrite, you know that. When it comes to sleep, I'm done. But, you know, are we sleeping? No. How do we feel on a day-to-day? Basic health metrics. If we know how we're supposed to feel, we've got that to measure. And if we're not feeling like that, the first step is like, right, what do I need to do to feel, to get myself to a state where I can sleep, take a breath. This is it. Sleep, take a breath, digest food properly because I'm not in a stress state. So I'm actually assimilating the nutrients and I'm not impacted from that health perspective. Have a consistent cycle. And then we can go, cool, now we're going to train 3 days a week. 30-minute workouts, if that's all we've got time for, that's fine. We're going to hit a certain amount of steps every day. We're going to make sure that we get in approximately 200 grams of fruit, 300 grams of veg. So we're getting in enough nutrients. Boom. Drink your water. That's it. But we're going to do all the other stuff to be able to do the training and eat the food, assimilate the nutrients, recover from it. Otherwise, it's pointless. We're just throwing more and more fuel on the fire, and eventually it's just going to, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's going to have to be a part 2 to this because of what you talked about with the grind and the hustle culture and how women are trying to drive like men. Like, yes, this is what I've been trying to say. We cannot work like men because we are not men. We have a cycle. Men work on a 24-hour cycle. We have a 28 to 35 day cycle. Like we are just different creatures. It's not good or bad. It just means that if they can go and I mean, I don't think it's good for them either, but if that's how they choose to operate, their burnout time or lead time to burnout may look really different to us, you know, and their version of fatigue and their version of whatever is going to look different. And also just with the state of the world, I mean, I don't think, you know, lack of health is doing men any favors anyway, but, you know, for us women, I think we need to stop trying to strive to prove ourselves by saying, oh, we can do what the men can do. It's like, we can do a lot. We don't have to do it the way they do it. So all for that. So we got to wrap up, but I know that you are a coach who also does lifestyle coaching for folks. So tell folks what that is. How can they find you? If they want to work with you, what does that look like? And also, actually, before you get to that, tell folks something that they could start doing today, maybe to get themselves one step closer to health, one step closer to a fitness lifestyle that could work for them.
I love that. There's so many little things. Like, I'll give them the little things, you know, make sure we're moving. Steps, so simple, you know, just make sure we're moving and we're in the habit of movement, because that's such an underrated thing. And so few people move, especially in corporate spaces, because it's difficult. We are sitting a lot, but movement. So get a little pedometer, cheap little thing from Amazon, doesn't have to be a lot, and just try and hit, say 6,000, 7,000 steps in a day. Just change your habits so that you are moving a little bit more. In between your sets in the gym, if you're going to the gym, walk. If you're waiting for your food in the microwave, do a lap around the kitchen. Get up every hour and go get a drink from the water cooler in your office. Like, just be in that habit of moving a little bit more, because the human body is made to move, and current society has completely stripped that away from us.
Yeah.
From a health perspective, that will do wonders. If you can, resistance train once or twice a week. And the muscle doesn't know if you're in a gym. The muscle doesn't know if it's a dumbbell or if it's just, a heavy bottle, or if you're picking up your kid, like, it doesn't know. So it can be anything. It can just be a little body weight workout in your living room a couple of times a week. It makes a huge difference from the health side, right? Mm-hmm. And then, like, I suppose, like, look, sleep and stress management I'll put as the next most important things, kind of touching into that nervous system regulation again. But, like, we just don't regulate that stuff enough. So sleep is magic. We need to get enough sleep, which means, not being on devices and technology. I am a terrible hypocrite with this, but not being on devices and technology at night, things like that. So just having a good sleep schedule. So read a book, do some journaling, listen to a podcast 40 minutes before bed. Just don't be on a phone, don't be on a computer. It's going to make a massive difference. And try and first thing in the morning, don't pick up your phone for the first half an hour, and instead go and just get some sunshine on your face. It'll change your life. Yeah. Small thing, but it will change your life. And journal. I hated it. I resisted it for years, but studies show us, just the act of writing something physically, not on your phone, writing it down helps us process the thoughts and helps us to make massive realizations and connections. So journal, just honestly, 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes, write something down. You can Google prompts, you can ask ChatGPT, but it can just be as simple as, how am I feeling today? Because how often do we actually sit down and say, hey, how am I feeling today? Yeah. We don't. We don't. And then feel it. Don't just intellectualize it. Feel it. So I suppose a little journal prompt, I'll leave everyone with that. So they've got some homework, which is something you hear from me a lot. Here's your homework for the week.
I love that. And this is why, folks, I love, the partnership and, the work with Lauren is she really does support your mental health aspect, because as we know, the physical and the mental go hand in hand. And when you're working with a coach who only looks at your physical metrics, but, doesn't really talk to you or talk you through the mental aspect. I mean, I would say that you probably want, to work with someone like Lauren. So tell folks how can they find you? How can they work with you? What does it look like to work with you, and who can work with you?
Thank you. And look, I work with all manner of women with all sorts of goals. The lifestyle side, we look at health, we look at sleep, we look at habit creation. We just look at creating a sustainable, healthy life. That's the lifestyle side. And then obviously athletes and competitors, well, that's where we start. Yeah. It's the habit creation. It's looking at all of those factors. It's the understanding as we get into a prep. So Instagram, you can find me there, Lauren Killey, or Built Different Society. Shoot me a message anytime. I'm always happy to help. If people have questions, if they're curious about things, please message, because I love conversations. I love people who want to learn. So please message, ask questions. I'm more than happy to help. I guess that kind of sums up what coaching with me is like. I like people that like to learn, and I like to teach, because I think humans need more knowledge.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Lauren. And folks, if, especially, a lot of my audience of folks I work with are women. So if you like to work with Lauren and get you're ready for that fitness journey, make sure to hit up Lauren. I've enjoyed working with her quite a bit. I've enjoyed working with you, Lauren. So yeah, I'm so glad you're here as my very first guest, and hopefully y'all took some nuggets away. And like Lauren said, if there's anything you can do today is do your steps, move, make sure you're sleeping. Okay. Get your sleep in and journal, right? Process your emotional, your mental state, because like she said, your body's going to keep that in your nervous system. It's going to, your body's going to show what's right or what's not right. So this was lovely. And like I said, at some point, we're going to need to have a part 2 to talk about the feminine way of what driving, being ambitious looks like. So, but thank you so much for being here today. Loved hearing your
Thank
wisdom,
you.
and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Lauren, have a great rest of your day. I know it's just morning for you.
See you, darling.